Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Deen Talk. We are here. We're going to jump right into discussion with the four wonderful guests because they were at the Women's March, which is said to be the largest march in American history. And they were there. One of the sisters says she's still on that feeling of being at the march. And so we want to get that from them. So who wants to say first? Because I know when I couldn't go because I had a Deen Talk recording that day, but I took my wife to the metro. And I mean, it was just like people were coming from every direction, walking into the metro, and it was beautiful just going to the metro to see all the different colors and genders and everybody going to the march. So what happened down there? Who wants to start? How about you start? What happened there?
Sure. So my experience is a little bit different because I was one of the volunteers for the Women's March. I am friends with the co-march leaders, Linda Sarsour, Carmen Perez, and
so you see everything
Tamika
that's not
Mallory.
happening and things like that.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
audience
definitely.
sees how beautiful this is.
Yeah, so I started working on the march in November. I think we started working November of last year. I was part of the communications team, just making sure the messaging and contributing to trying to get folks.
Make sure I'm hearing this right.
Yeah.
You said you started working on the march in November of 2016.
Yes.
Is that when the planning started, or
That's
was
when the planning started.
You're kidding me.
Yeah. So
no way.
Yeah, so it started. There was an elder in Hawaii who was just so fed up with the election, and she decided, I'm going to plan this women's march, and we're going to march on Washington. But she wasn't an organizer. Wow. So Michael Skolnick and a couple other folks. Michael Skolnick used to be like Russell Simmons' political director, and he runs his own company now. He recommended that Carmen Perez, Tamika Mallory, and Linda Sarsour joined, and they joined with another sister named Bob, and I'm forgetting Bob's last name right now.
Sister named Bob.
Yes, and they all joined together and formed this march and organized it with Janae Ingram. Janae Ingram used to do logistics for Reverend Al Sharpton. So these sisters are all experienced organizers, experience in fundraising, experience in march logistics.
Okay.
And they started working on this, a couple of days after the idea was conceived, and really were able to bring about miracles in a short amount of time.
So from an organizer's perspective, do you feel it was a success?
Definitely,
Okay.
most definitely. I mean,
Okay.
there were more than 400 organizations that partnered along with the Women's March to put on the march. There was a beautiful group of unity principles that were put forth to guide and undergird why we were marching, the issues we were marching for. It was very inclusive, inviting families, inviting all genders and persuasions to come to the march.
Wow.
And, we only expected to have 250,000, and there were 1 million people just in the streets of D.C. alone, and that's not counting all the other marches around the country and around the world. There was a march in Riyadh. There was a march in.
So I want the audience to know this. I'm still a little bit in shock about it. That's the power of. I could just say it's the power of Muslim women and women across the world coming together. But to put on a march like that, starting in November, as a person who's been a part of a lot of organizing and programs, it seems next to impossible. But they did it. So what do you, and keep this in history. You were just met one of the organizers of it, right? So the biggest march in history.
One of the volunteers.
One of the volunteers. Okay.
Friends with the organizers. One of the volunteers.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the fact that it started in November, because a lot of my friends thought that it was a reaction to the inauguration. But no, this was after the election. That's when it started, and the lady in Hawaii said, let's come and march in Washington, and she put the Facebook post up and went to bed and woke up, and there were literally thousands of replies saying, we'll be there.
I'm going to take another time out. The power of one. One person in Hawaii. And we flew to Hawaii. That's a long way away. 6 hours to California, then another 6-hour flight to Hawaii. One person from there just posted an idea, and look what happened. Wow, I'm sorry to interrupt.
And again, the idea is built on, empowering everyone. It is a women's march, but it's a march for everybody, for all injustices. It was a march for immigrant rights, for women's rights, for people with disabilities, environmental issues. So all these...
That's where those 400 organizations came from.
Yes, all these organizations. And it wasn't just haphazard. There were unity principles that built they were structured on unity principles, and that's really what sort of opened my heart to it. I was like, I need to be part of this because it was not against something specific in terms of a specific individual or a specific organization or entity. It was against injustice.
Wow. And you say you're still on that high from the march. You can still feel the energy and everything. Yeah?
Yes.
Now, at there, what were you feeling? What were you experiencing? What did you see there?
So I really felt that psychologically it was just so necessary. Because after hearing so much of the negativity that's been going around, it was so it just made you feel love to be there with so many people, not a single arrest. And I mean, we were packed like sardines, but everyone was kind. And, you know, you did what you could to make sure that people could move as much as possible. And I mean, there were people there in wheelchairs, and it was very difficult to get through those crowds, but we made a path, and it was just, you know, it was necessary to kind of get our minds straight again, to just feel like, you know, this is going to be okay, and there are things that we can all do, each one of us individually, and there are a lot of us. So just to see how many people support one another was so important, because that's just not what you're seeing when you turn on the TV every day.
Now, you said it was so needed, which tells me that there was something about just being there, period, right? Because my wife was there, and she was saying, like, they didn't hear any speeches. They didn't see any performances, nothing. They were walking this way, and then they were told, nothing's over here, you got to go back that way. And they started walking this way, and they said, this been shut off, you got to go that way. And they started walking, and they were just being bounced around, but still, they were just there with all those people, and they knew why they were there, that alone did something. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, because I mean, it was God that asked me to go to the march, and I was very conflicted, right? I was like, I wasn't sure, because I didn't want to be...
Conflicted? Why?
Yeah, because I didn't want to be part of an anti... Because
Something.
there's so anti like Trump and all the hate, because there's so much disrespect going around. There's a lot of things like yeah, you want to support something, but at the same time, people are like all these memes of dissing.
You didn't want to be associated with.
I
Okay.
definitely didn't want to be part of that. So I was conflicted.
Well, what
and
was it that
like,
she said that convinced you?
Well, she was like, no, it's not a women festival. It was women going. So I was like, how could you? You know what I mean?
It was women.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, it's our sisters, you know. And
Okay.
so you want to be part of an organization that does support other women. You want to be inspired by other women. Like I want to see other women do well, so that I can feel like I can do it too. And so we went there, and it was just an environment of one of love, where you can tell that everybody was being careful, right? They didn't want to be, they didn't want to be pushing or shoving, and it really, you walked away feeling kind of like, oh wow, so this is what is possible. So
Not only is it what's possible, it's
Yeah.
possible because one person,
yeah,
about, I don't know how many miles Hawaii is, X amount of miles away, just type something. So when people say, oh, I can't do anything, I'm just one person, what I'm going to do, let this women's march, and listen, I just discovered this just now. This isn't scripted, right? I just found out that it was a Muslim woman in Hawaii that started it. I'm sorry, a woman in Hawaii that started. I'm getting too excited. A woman in Hawaii who typed something on the internet. The next day, everybody was like, yeah, let's do that. Then in November, women, Muslim women, people of all different faiths, and maybe some men.
yes, loads
I don't
of men.
know. We'll talk about that next segment. They came involved, and they started planning this. And all of a sudden, you have the biggest march in history. It's still just unbelievable.
Yeah, the march was completely led by all women.
Okay.
There was an elder who was, Mr. Harry Belafonte, who is, just a legend, and Gloria Steinem were all like honorary chairs of the march. But it really was all women led. There were some men volunteers, but I think that this was monumental because this was led by all women, and they were incredible. Like, I got to see them in the war room, working out of the hotel.
What's the war room?
The war room, when you're putting on a big event like this, you bring everyone together towards just before you're about to bring about the event, and everyone's working in one room together. So it's a conference room, and they're all talking. You've got your communications team, your logistics team, you've got your talent team. We were doing Facebook Lives in the room. We had everything going on in the room. That room was going probably about 17 hours a day, just, you know, fundraising, all these different things, you know, donations, people getting the T-shirts and whatnot ready. So it was just incredible, and there was a level of respect in that room and people being careful. It was the largest gathering of disabled people. We had our disabled persons leader. We had all of these different constituents in the room and talking. It was just beautiful.
Now, you mentioned something earlier that I just want to bring back out now, and you mentioned about 5 names, and then you said all of these were super experienced organizers. How much do you think this would have been, just fell on its face if you didn't have those key people with years of experience of putting this together? Because I'm saying one person did this and, you know, everybody came together, but it sounds like the key people got involved at the right time to make this happen. How much do you think hardcore experience went into making this a huge success?
I think experience was a big key to this. I mean, these were women who had worked with other larger organizations and had done this work similarly before, but maybe not have been given the credit. So it was really interesting, the struggles that they went through to get the permit and whatnot. But I think they were a key to it. But I also think, and the sisters on the panel mentioned this as well, the group, you know, the women and the people who attended the march were very respectful of one another. And I think that collective spirit of the people who attended the march led to its success as well.
We have about 30 seconds. Anybody else?
I think I don't know how much. I mean, this was so large that correct me if I'm wrong, but if the experience that the leaders had wasn't on such a large scale. I mean, they did have that experience, but again, it feeds into the constituency of the people attending and the people also who want to be part of this. So feeding on each other, you have that experience of the organizers, and you have the people who really want to be part of this, who can support it, and the fundraising that happened beforehand.
Fundraising. We didn't even talk about the funds.
That
Look,
all makes a difference.
They need to have a special just on this. This is probably going to be in books in schools and in the coming years about what happened here, how did it happen, putting it all together so that we can do it again. So we'll be back. Don't go anywhere. You're going to learn more, just like you're learning now on Deen Talk.